We have Anna Geppert from Maynooth, who's going to talk to us about sports, assistive technology, and how they can relate to sports. I'm really, really looking forward to that. And this is a pre-recorded session, I believe.
Exactly, yeah. So Anna has prepared a kind of pre-recorded presentation for us. I think she was just worried. I think her internet, as we all are. So we've got a lovely pre-recorded video, just about 8 or 9 minutes to watch, and then Anna is going to be present and can answer any questions or talk a little bit more about it. So if you will bear with me for the moment while I share this video.
Perfect.
Okay, and Erica, you might then give me a thumbs up once you
Yeah,
can see it, and then
you can
I'm going to
see
press play,
it.
and if you can hear it, then that would be great.
Okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Anna
Yep.
Geppert. I am a PhD
That's good.
candidate at
Thanks.
Maynooth University, and my research focuses on assistive technology and sport. And today I'm going to be talking about the role of everyday assistive technology in sport participation. I'll begin by briefly explaining why sport matters and how I'm defining both sport and assistive technology in my own research. I'll then walk you through 3 connected studies I have conducted alongside my supervisors, Dr. Emma Smith and Professor Malcolm McLachlan. Firstly, a survey of everyday assistive technologies, secondly, a policy analysis, and thirdly, a photo voice study focusing on lived experiences. I'll finish by bringing these studies together and outlining the implications for practice, policy, and research. But before we start with these studies, I would like to briefly talk about why sport matters and why I'm talking about sport at a webinar about higher education and employment. But sport is not separate from education or work. It can actually act as a bridge between them. Sport is one of the most inclusive tools we have for engagement, skills development, and social mobility. It reaches people both inside and beyond higher education, and it directly supports goals around access, well-being, retention, and employability. So, when we talk about sport, we're also talking about broader participation in society. In educational contexts, sport can open access for underrepresented students. It builds a sense of belonging and motivation, and it supports holistic development, including confidence, well being, and resilience. In terms of employability, sport develops key graduate skills such as leadership, teamwork, accountability, and discipline. And it opens pathways into a wide range of careers, from coaching and health to events, data, and community work. But despite these and many other mental, physical, and social benefits one can gain from engaging in sports, unfortunately, participation rates in sport remain low among people with disabilities. This is not because of lack of interest, but because of persistent barriers, including stigma, inaccessible environments, and limited access to inclusive opportunities. While many strategies, there has been very little attention paid to the role of everyday assistive technology in enabling or facilitating non-elite and recreational sport participation. In my research, I use a broad definition of sport, understood as all intentional physical activity, including recreational and community level participation, not just elite or competitive sport. And when I refer to everyday assistive technology, I'm not only talking about specialized sports equipment. I mean everyday technologies, such as mobility devices, communication tools, transport aids, personal care technologies, and environmental controls. These technologies shape the entire participation journey before, during, and after sport. and often determine whether participation is possible at all. So, the first study I have included for this presentation is a survey of 50 everyday assistive products designed to map out how assistive technology supports sport participation in practice. The findings of the study are structured around a participation timeline, so before sport, during sport, and after sport. Before sport, technologies such as wheelchairs, ramps, and transport aids allow people to venues. During sport, communication devices support coaching and teamwork, while mobility, stability, and sensory aids ensure safe and meaningful participation. And after sport, recovery technologies such as a pressure relief mattress, for instance, and hygiene and changing aids become crucial. What this study shows is that everyday AT frequently determines whether participation can happen at all. The second study looks at how rights-based frameworks and policies shape access to assistive technology. I examined the UN, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or in short CRPD, which frames access to assistive technology as a right, not a luxury, and strongly emphasizes participation and inclusion. I analyzed national assistive technology policies, which vary widely in terms of funding, eligibility, and timelines. Delays or gaps in provision directly limit sport participation. Although sport is rarely mentioned explicitly in these policies, policy implementation fundamentally shapes whether everyday AT is available when it's needed. The third study is an ongoing photo voice project, which centers the lived experiences of assistive technology users. Participants use photography to document how AT supports their sport participation. This method centers user expertise, highlights emotional and relational dimensions of technology, and makes invisible supports visible. Emerging themes include AT as a source of empowerment and independence, AT as a social connector supporting belonging and team identity, and AT as a barrier when it is unavailable, unreliable, or poorly designed. Participants also show significant creativity in repurposing everyday technologies to make sport possible. Together, these three studies offer a comprehensive picture. The survey shows the breadth of everyday AT across the participation journey. The policy analysis shows the structural conditions that facilitate or restrict access. And the photo voice study shows the lived realities and priorities of users themselves. Taken together, these findings position everyday assistive technology as foundational, not peripheral, to inclusive and sustainable sport participation worldwide. There are clear implications across sectors. For sport organizations, everyday AT needs to be recognized as part of the sport ecosystem, with improvements in venue accessibility, communication systems, and staff training. For policymakers, timely and equitable AT provision is essential, and policies should align with CRPD commitments and move beyond narrow definitions of sport-related technology. For researchers, there is a need to look beyond elite sport technologies and use participatory methods, such as photo voice, that value user expertise. To conclude, everyday assistive technology is the backbone of inclusive sport participation. The call to action is to recognize it, fund it, integrate it, and listen to the people who use it. When everyday AT is visible and supported, sport becomes accessible, not just for some, but for everyone. Thank you very much for your attention. And I would just like to add that we are still looking for participants for our photo voice study. So if you're over 18 and interested, please reach out. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take questions.
Great. Okay. I hope that was interesting. And we have the lovely Anna here with us today. I'm just going to add your spotlight there, Anna, if you want to go on ahead and say hi.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for having me. And I hope I didn't talk too slow in the recording.
No, it was perfect, easy, and clear to understand.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Huge, huge thank you. So we actually do have a few questions coming in already. Really, really interesting study. So I think it'll get a lot of questions. I'm wondering, so somebody asked here, how did participants find the photo voice survey? And did they like the format, etc.?
Well, we mostly reached out via like a snowball sampling method. So we reached out to organizations that we had as part of our network, my supervisors and me, and then they sort of sent it on to their participants or people who were part of their community. I can pop the link in the chat if anyone's interested.
Yeah,
And
I
yeah,
am.
welcome to
I
join.
might as well
Okay.
pop it in. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Another question is just wondering what the photo voice study is. So kind of how does it work and what are you doing with the questions there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the photo voice study is basically 4 weeks in which the IT user takes photographs of any assistive technology that the person uses to engage in sport. And yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but kind of, yeah, also the before, during, and after. And then after those 4 weeks, we meet on and do an interview, and we discuss and use the photographs kind of as just something to lean on and dig deeper into what the AT means.
Cool. Yeah. And when do you think it'll be published, or do you have any timeline?
I do. So I would like to be done with all the data collection in October, and then, but I've already started, like it's been ongoing for a while, so I have already done some analysis of the first interviews, but it's still ongoing. So
Okay.
yeah.
Exciting. And then just from kind of my side, I'm just wondering how you got into this area. Is this like have you done sport in the past or you don't know, do you have a background in sport and technology and you combined them or just wondering kind of your own story?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I come from a sports science background and I'm a sports, especially outdoor enthusiast myself. And then the IT part kind of came along during my master's.
Mm.
I applied to do my internship at Maynooth University, and my supervisor, Dr. Emma Smith and Malcolm McLachlan, they were doing research on IT and sport, and it really interested me. At the time, I was doing a master's in global health studies. And yeah, this was something I could really see myself in, also just because of my personal life. And then we started doing the survey, which was the first study I mentioned, and then from there, the results were so interesting that I wanted to dig deeper.
Keep it going. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool,
exactly.
exciting. Yeah. And then I also wonder when you do have the results and kind of the published piece after this, is there a place we can find it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder if I could send it also to a head if you wanted to share it once it's published.
Yeah, we can put it on maybe the website along with your slides
Yeah,
once it's ready. Yeah,
exactly.
it's a good idea. Perfect.
Yeah.
Another question is, has there been anything which has surprised you so far with the study?
Well, very much so, and I don't know if that's kind of my own. Um, Sometimes as a researcher, you go in with certain ideas, and I remember when we did the survey, I did not expect to have all of this kind of everyday assistive products being relevant to sport participation. Afterwards, thinking about it, it made a lot of sense, but at the time, I remember it surprised me because of maybe just also my own narrow way of thinking sometimes that to do sports, you need sport specific IT. But of course, the before and after are just as important as the moment on the playing field. So that surprised me a lot. Um, and I don't know, I keep on getting surprised, which I love. And I think that's the important part of research is not assuming, the answers, but letting
Yeah,
the participants really show you what the answers are, basically.
definitely. Yeah, because you might have kind of a preconceived idea, and then your
Exactly.
mind is blown when it's changed.
Yeah, exactly.
So just another maybe final question, unless there's any more coming in through the chat there. Are there any common popular forms of AT that people are using, or maybe you can describe a couple of the ones that you've learned about?
In terms of everyday IT, or
I
I
think it's
suppose,
probably more related to the sport, to
oh,
the
sports
to the
specific
study.
IT?
Yeah.
Oof. Well, it kind of depends on what sport you engage in the
Mm,
most because now last weekend I was actually at a para wakeboarding camp.
cool. Yeah.
And so right now my mind is just thinking about like para wakeboarding chairs, which are kind of similar to sit skiing chairs.
Mm,
And yeah, kind of the gear surrounding that specific sport. But of course, I guess it really depends on what sport you're into and focus on.
yeah. Or
Yeah.
even I know you'd mentioned kind of everyday AT that's being used for sport. So maybe do you have an example of that? Just
Yeah,
curious.
absolutely. I think that would be definitely ramps,
Mm,
handles for shower chair, for shower bath or toiletry, incontinence products, pressure relief cushions or mattresses. Yeah, I think all of these are very commonly useful, depending on if you're a wheelchair user or what disability you have. But
yeah.
yeah,
Cool. And was the wakeboarding, was that in Ireland or where was that?
it was actually in Spain, in Almeria.
Ah,
Yeah.
cool. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so interesting and yeah, very close to my heart.
Perfect. Cool. Well, huge, huge thank you, Anna. If anyone has any questions, we've dropped Anna's email there in the chat, so feel free to reach out. Is that okay, Anna, if they reach out to your email?
Absolutely. And I'm just sharing the photo voice like form if anyone wants to, yeah,
Perfect.
participate. Thank you so much for
Thanks
having
so
me.
much, Anna.
Thank you for the questions.
Nice to meet
Bye.
you.
Likewise.
Yeah, a few thank yous coming into the chat there.